Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to We're Not Pros, the show where at any given time, at least one of us is trying to be constructive. My name is Joseph.
I'm Matt.
He didn't know I was going to say that. I thought it'd be funnier, but life is full of surprises. And
I'm
so
saving
on
my
and so
improv moments for later on.
Okay, right on. Today, we are going to be talking about something that is reasonably topical because I feel like being topical every now and then. We are talking about loot boxes.
Yes, the wonderful loots. Loot boxes, not lupins.
Lupin the Third?
Hmm?
Oh, sorry. I that's where I thought you were going to go with that.
No, Monty Python.
Okay, gotcha. I know Monty Python. I should know that. Now, thank you. For what we need to do to fully get to the bottom of this conversation is that we're not just going to talk about the digital loot boxes that you have probably seen in a game anywhere between now and 2012, 2011, but we're also going to be talking about booster packs, because booster packs were the loot boxes before we had loot boxes. And for those of you who have never opened a booster pack in the physical sense, I guess that's possible. A booster pack is the same principle. You don't know what's going to be in this thing, but you are going to have some kind of voluntary transaction, or I guess earn it, and you're going to open it up and you're going to see a bunch of things, and maybe you get something you like, maybe you'll get something that's really useful, maybe you'll get something that's both. We don't know. That's the crux of the conversation. Now, what I want to do first is talk about the absolute best experience that I had with a booster pack. I mean, none of my loot box experiences were even close to this, but like I just said, it's all kind of the same thing. So this is Christmas last year, which would be 2016, because that's how the calendar.
Should we start saving near years? That kind of dates our episodes.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, yes, they have
there's your point.
There's an upload date right underneath the title, though.
Analysis to this. So, I mean, I definitely see where you're going. Let's keep an eye out for that. But that's just how it's gone so far. I'm really more concerned about getting the dates wrong than saying them at all. Anyways, so my mistake. So 2016 Christmas. For me, Christmases, I just get together with my mom, my dad, and my brother. We don't do anything big ever since I've been ostracized from my dad's side of the family. And I asked for Magic the Gathering cards from a specific set called, I already forgot what it is, like Dark Ascension. That's it. And there is an angel in the set called Avacyn, who I had previously got her previous iteration from a Magic the Gathering set called Avacyn Restored. Now, what had happened is you can buy these booster boxes where you get like, 25, 30 booster packs. It's like $99 to $120 depending on the rarity of the set. And it would have cost me less money to just buy the card outright, but I wanted to like go through every last pack and see if I can actually get one in the wild. And I did, and it was great. So for this Christmas, I thought, okay, maybe I'm gonna get maybe like one or two, three or four, just like a couple of booster packs, just to have a few goes of it. And I get one booster pack. So there's like 12 cards in this thing or whatever. And I open it up whilst somebody else is opening up their gift. And there is, I forgot to bring her today. There is the Avacyn card from the set. And I'm swearing. I'm like, holy shit, I don't believe it. And then, completely draw all the attention.
Just for a little bit of reference, Avacyn is a mythic rare. Mm-hmm. And it's not the only mythic rare. So even if you get a mythic rare, it's not necessarily going to be Avacyn.
Right. Now, I had suspected that in the Avacyn Restored box, that even though she's a mythic rare, I'm pretty sure that they would just put her in every box anyways. It's like, well, okay, you know what? People want the damn angel. How many times is she going to even show up in a game? It's for the people like me who want the pretty angel. So that's what I figured. But with the booster pack, it's a lot less likely. So I'm like, wow, that's really something to coalesce. I texted you. I texted all my MTG friends because I was really happy about it. And you're like, an angel visited you on Christmas. Use this wisely. And like, exactly. And like, that's a really happy memory. I mean, there's more important things in life, like getting married and having kids and all that shit. But for like what, like a $5 purchase, that's a lot of happiness that comes from one pack. So, I'm of the stance that booster packs and what is really at the core of the conversation here, gambling, can be fun. It can be worth doing once in a while, as long as, like every other addiction, it's not, too much. You don't get too far into it. But I was definitely glad that it happened. Now, you
Well, in lieu, like we do discuss these episodes to some extent before doing them, and you told me this example and how it was an amazing, example.
Yeah, more than once.
Oh yes, but because we were going to be doing the loot box episode, I thought I would conduct a controlled experiment. Now, my relationship with Overwatch is dubious at best, but for the sake
I like it a lot more than he does.
he actually likes it. But for the sake of this experiment, I decided to reinstall it, and over the course of the winter event, we got 5 gifts as a Christmas gift, or 5 of the Winter's Day loot boxes, whatever, as a Christmas gift. I bought 5. I earned 6 through the daily thing, not through the daily, but through the arcade things. I got
They're like the Overwatch equivalent of a daily, I guess.
yeah, well,
Tri-daily,
weekly,
semi-weekly. Yeah, no,
yeah.
I get it.
I got another 4 of them through leveling up, and then we had the 1 free we get whenever they introduce a new chest. And so total for 21 boxes, if I did the math right on the... Yeah, 21 boxes. Opened them all. Got 2 legendaries, one of which was a skin I really didn't like, and the other which was an emote that it's an infinite loop emote, so when am I going to be using this thing outside of the ready room? I'm not going to be taking a point and then sit down and take out a puppy and start going, oh, look, it's a puppy. So I felt really screwed over at the end of that, especially when you looked at 21 loot boxes. You think I would have gotten something I actually liked out of that.
So, as we can see from this example, it's easy for these things to get out of hand and to almost by design, not almost, by design, literally by design, entice somebody to keep doing this and doing this and do this until they're satisfied.
All right, so before we get any further in this conversation, we did sort of violently agree on something when we were doing the pre-discussions. So this conversation really has been brought to the forefront through the EA fuck-ups, otherwise known as EA being EA.
Right.
And their treatment of Star Wars Battlefield 2. The idea Battlefront 2. The idea that they had pre-order bonuses that basically offered power in multiplayer mode, that they had loot box, that their things were earned through loot boxes, that you could also buy the loot boxes, but more importantly, those loot boxes could contain power. They could contain upgrades that gave you an actual quantifiable advantage over people who didn't have those upgrades. And again, based on our discussions before, we both condemn random number generation distribution of power. Like I think a lot of when we talk about loot boxes, we're talking about cosmetics, and when it comes to the booster packs, like that's a physical thing, so that's a whole category unto itself. But with this recent practice in video games of you unlock something that's attached to your account as opposed to an actual object, and that these random number generated unlocks can actually make you more powerful, and that you can pay money directly to a company to get more attempts at the slot machine, like we both condemn RNGing for power, right?
100%.
Yeah. So like it's not appropriate to put radical game altering objects or mechanics within RNG chests, especially if you're now going to sell them for real world money to people.
Yeah, and we're not exactly on the defending side of this. Most people who are even like slightly aware of these kind of manipulations are on the same side that we are.
Yeah.
So usually this is like a function of my personality, but I do like to try to think of some way to kind of defend why they would do this. And I will be honest, maybe someday I'll come up with one. But I got nothing.
Well, the answer is simple. Spaceballs 2, The Quest for More Money.
There it is.
But going back a step to your booster pack analogy, because I do think that's a great place to start. That was an original RNG thing. Like, you have trading cards, you've got trading card games. Like, the whole idea of buying a pack and having it randomized for what you get out of it, that has been around for a while. And even though I despise the idea of loot boxes, I still think that's okay for the sheer reason that it's a physical object. Mm-hmm. If you buy a card pack, it contains physical cards you can do what you want with. For example, I don't have my pen on. Can I borrow a pen from you? So you see, you own this pen. You have now lent me this pen. I now hold this pen. You no longer have this pen. I can do what I want with this pen. I can write on this paper if I can spin this pen and drop it. Can you tell we improv this? I can spin it. I can just snap at it repetitively until the people who are doing our audio come out here and punch me in the face, or apparently... Sorry. But the point is, it's in my hand. I can now give it back to you. I can now physically assault you to get the pen back. It's an actual
It's a free country.
It's an object that you have control over. And because if I want that specific pen, I can go to a pen store and buy that pen, just like I could go to a card game store and buy a copy of the Avacyn, thank you, card that you have. It's a physical object rule. It's a physical object thing. And what a lot of these video games are doing in terms of unlocks is instead of giving you something you have any kind of control over, they're basically taking a little padlock off your account saying you now have access to this.
Right. Now, there have been examples of games that have given the player a little bit more leeway in what they can do. Team Fortress 2 initially didn't do the box opening system. Initially, you had these other items that you can earn that were tied to your achievements. And the idea was if you explored the character you were playing in ways that you might not do, so to like just instinctively, or you met certain milestones based off how often you played the character, you earned other weapons, and they weren't more or less powerful. They were just ways to kind of augment your character so that you could do different things in the fight. And that was all fine.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about Team Fortress 2 and all their unlockables, like throughout the history of the game, is none of them are necessarily more powerful. I mean, we have weapons that behave a little differently, but if you talk to people who like play in tournaments, a lot of them will say the vanilla weapons are the best because they're the most what you see is what you get, as opposed to the heavy's minigun that creates a ring of fire around him when he's shooting it, but consumes 6 ammo per shot and does this and does this and does like it's like just give me Natasha.
Right. Now, I haven't played Team Fortress 2 in quite a while, but if I were to go back to it, I would play the vanilla. I would go to a vanilla server because the experience was already more than satisfying. So the additional weapons were, again, fine, but just not my type. Or not my preference, and they understood that, and so they made sure that people had options so that they can get the experience that they want, not dissimilar to what Magic the Gathering does. You have different ways that you can approach play. They have different modes so that the power is under control. You actually can go to a card store and go for this draft, or you can do a draft yourself like we've talked about doing or have done.
We've done it once or twice.
Yeah, we did once or twice. Yeah, that's why I had to correct myself. And it's actually the whole balance is based off the randomness. So everybody opens up a booster pack, takes a card out of it, probably the most powerful one, just because, and then hands the rest of the pack over to the person to the right or left or whatever, and then you draft a little deck based off whatever cards that you got from this process. Someone's very likely to get something really powerful. So everybody kind of understands that it's imbalanced, but because we all understand that, it's fair. And fairness and balance are two different things.
Well, that's also not the default mode. I mean,
it's not. It's just an example relevant to us.
Yeah, just as we talked about Magic the Gathering, there's countless ways to play it all over the place. And you're right, when you go into a draft, you're accepting that random number generation is a component of it. Except, is it really called random number generation when it's not a computer doing it?
No, it's more like shuffle if you were to dial it all the way back or trace it all the way back to the production, because there is a decision of how many cards from each set are going to be produced, and then there are decisions as to how they're distributed, so that one store doesn't accidentally get 10 mythic rares in an amount where they're not supposed to get it. So it's pretty close to random.
Yeah, but the point is it is random. It's just not like the term RNG is like a computer term, so that's sort of why I hesitated there. Yeah. But yeah, that's just accepting that it's random. Like same thing if you're doing single draft mode in Dota 2. It is possible that your opponent is going to get someone like Tidehunter, and you just have no counter for Tidehunter. Because, Tidehunter can be easily countered if you have access to the full roster of heroes. Same thing with a whole pile of people, like Silencer and Tidehunter are like the two kings of single draft.
Right. I for one actually quite like just all random, where everybody just gets like their one hero, and you can like sacrifice some of your gold to repick, but that's still 2 heroes out of a big pool. So I just wanted to, it's funny that you mentioned Dota 2, because Dota 2 has the same leeway that Team Fortress 2 has, where you are able to sell or trade the stuff. There are a couple of items that are bound to your account for some reason. I don't fully understand it, but for the most part, you can take these items that you win in game or earn in game or whatever, and you can actually sell it for money. And I've actually been able to build a small I was about to say fortune, but that's really pushing it. I was able to get some money out of it, and I was able to buy some games on Steam for nothing.
Well, essentially, Steam has a function called the Marketplace, and a lot of games, primarily their games, Team Fortress 2, Counter-Strike, and Dota 2, and actually even Portal, but no one really buys that stuff. Like, it's kind of a dead market. Anyway, you can sell the items you get. I think there's like a 2-week lock, so they do have chests, and the chests do give you a random item. But the rule of thumb is you will never get a duplicate item from that chest until you've received all items from that chest. And then after 2 weeks, you can put that on the marketplace. I've been able to pick up a lot of cosmetic stuff in Dota 2 from the marketplace for cheaper than it would have been to roll that chest once. Mm-hmm. And that is where the leeway comes from, because even though this is still data, it's still treated like a physical object. Like going back to the pen example, it's something that, like, I've even gifted items to you. Like, hey, I got this thing for this character I don't like. I could sell it for like 40 cents in the market. You take it because I know you like this character. And again, I've been able to buy stuff like that. We've been able to trade it. Like, they're treated like physical objects as opposed to, again, removing a padlock on your account.
And it shows a lot of respect for the virtual reality element to online games, because, yes, Dota 2 is a game, but you are also existing via an avatar in a three-dimensional space, which is, again, we said try not to date ourselves, but it's 2018 now, and the virtual reality element is just getting more and more popular. So what I'm saying is, as true as it is now, it will continue to be more true as time goes on. So there is a respect for, this is my property, these are my clothes, these are my weapons, this is mine, and I have say over who gets to have it if I want to sell it. I don't have control over the market, but the market is a whole other thing.
Yeah, like I unbox an item I don't like, I can sell it, or I can trade it for an item I do like. It at least gives me a sense of control, and it also sort of mitigates the disappointment if I do unbox some stuff. Now, it should be noted that when Dota does do boxes, they're very much restricted. Like, each individual box will have like 7 items you can get. A lot of the other games that we're going to be talking about, especially like Overwatch, just do the whole pool simultaneously pretty much. So there is a bit of a difference there. But, you know, Dota 2, it does have it is restricted to whatever items are within that box, and each one is a thing that you have control over. Which, if more games were doing this with their RNG, I don't think it'd be as big a problem, because it would, again, give you the consolidation prize of being able to trade it for money or trade it for another item. Back before the marketplace was a full thing, you could trade items in Team Fortress 2 for keys. Keys were the stand-in currency for Team Fortress 2. Keys would unlock chests before chests just came unlocked. Like, they did do some revamping system, but it meant that since each key was $2.50, it created a strange value to all objects in the game where everything was worth an interval of $2.50. Now, I'm not quite sure if switching to a full currency was really the best thing in the world. I mean, it's definitely a lot cleaner, but it did allow for certain restrictions. Nothing could be worth really over a certain point. Like, if an item was worth, $2.75, so to speak, too bad it's worth a key, that's $2.50. It was an interesting system because it created an internalized marketplace, and I think that did eventually lead to the Steam marketplace, where it's like, you know what, we're just going to give you access to funds.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why I was actually quite happy about that is because there are people, quite a number of players, who only have so many opportunities in their life to earn a living. Now, are they going to really earn a living off of it? Well, I don't know, but at least they have the opportunity to try, and maybe they luck out, maybe they get their hands on some good items, maybe they play quite a bit. And the option to make money through an honest transaction is something that I will always support. I traded sold items. I never felt like there was any kind of manipulation or backhandedness going on in Dota 2. Now, that said, in any marketplace, there are some people who read trends and who understand it, and so they end up profiting more than me, but that's because they put in the time and did the research, and it's more power to them.
Yeah, well, I'm actually friends with someone who doesn't go full-on professional, try to game the marketplace, but he has spent some time studying it, because if there's an item he wants, he does look at the trends, he does try to figure out when the price drops. That is a bit of a drawback to having a player-controlled market, because all the value to items are assigned by the other players. which can mean some things are worth a lot. It can mean some things are worth crap. It can, like, one of the justifications given by someone who worked at Valve was the reason why some items were untradeable is because they knew the marketplace would become flooded with them if it became tradable, especially when it comes to the compendium. We can't really go into full details of the compendium. That's an entire episode unto itself. But there were some items that basically were given out to players. I don't want to say for free.
Well, there were things that they wanted people to have in order to commemorate certain events, like the internationals or smaller tournaments. So they wanted to encourage people to have these tokens of a reflection for how long they've been involved in the Dota scene and to have some pride with it. So it's like, guys, don't give away your program for this because everyone who was involved in it is going to get one. Trust us on this one. You're gonna look back and you might be happy that you held on to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice having something to say like, hey, I was there and I was around for this year.
Yeah.
You know, I can know I'm one of the originals because I have weather effects, and I don't think they're ever going to release any new weather effects ever again.
Oh, no?
Well, they haven't in several years.
Wow, okay, fair enough. Now, there's an issue that I have with loot boxes in that you have ways where you just kind of play and it just kind of gives it to you. Like, okay, I'm playing the game, filling up the meter. Oh, I leveled up. Great, cool. Didn't care. I was just trying to play. And then it gives me a box. Okay, cool. Open it up. Oh, a skin I can use. Cool. That's all fine. Where my issue with loot boxes is when, and I'll use Overwatch as my example. And you mentioned it earlier when you have, say, the play 3 games in the arcade in order to earn this loot box. And then you only had so many that you can earn in a week, and they would refresh. And here's the issue here's my issue with it. So you have your responsibilities in life. You have your job, you have your relationships, you have chores, whatever. And I maintain this as many times as I could. You go back to our Stop Being a Child episode. Responsibility comes before everything, and I will always stand by that. But when all those responsibilities are taken care of and you got nothing else to do and you just want to enjoy yourself, which you are also entitled to, you play the game. The game is supposed to be the reward because the game is supposed to allow you to do things that we find enjoyable. And it's not just video games, it's all sorts of different kind of games. Card games, even the tactile feel of like flicking a card or putting it down, those are all very small things that are actually pleasurable to the person because of the sound and of the sensory feedback that you get. Swinging a golf ball or swinging the club, not swinging the golf ball, that would be assault. Swinging the club.
Only if you hit someone.
Yeah, well, I got to work on my aim. Yes, so you swing the club and you hit the ball, and that feels good. You dribble the basketball, that feels good. You play video games, and Overwatch sold me because I was quite enjoying the variety of things that I could do. Like I said in the support episode, the Flight on Mercy felt good. Lucio feels good to play. Blocking bullets with the shield, right? So that all feels really good. And then there's a challenge to it. So, okay, now that I have this thing that I enjoy doing, how do I take that into an environment where I'm challenged to do it in a way that actually tests me in some way? And that's where the gameplay comes from. And that is great. And so then when you get to earning these loot boxes, if I could find a better analogy for this, I swear I would. But the loot boxes is the orgasm after having sex. I'm sorry, there's no better way I can do this, but the game is sex.
And our rating and our PG rating just went up.
What? We always swear. I said, like I said, if I can find a better analogy for it, I would use it, but I can't. So what happens is when you have a means to earn these loot boxes, the game goes from being the reward to the responsibility. And now you're responsible for earning these boxes, and then the boxes turn into the reward, and then you just chase that over and over and over again, and that's addiction.
And especially in terms of the arcade, you can often find yourself doing something you weren't really that interested to begin with. Now, I love Capture the Flag. I think it's one
and
of the...
I love Mayhem.
Yeah, well, no, the thing is, I love Capture the Flag in general.
Right, yeah.
Like, Unreal
I love Mayhem in general. Sorry.
I can see that. But like Unreal Tournament, that I love Capture the Flag in there. Team Fortress 2 was built around Capture the Flag. Tribes was built around Capture the Flag. Like, all these games were done it. And Overwatch as a system was designed for capture points and payload modes. So, moving capture point. it was not designed for capture the flag. And the moment we step into capture the flag mode, it just turns into a bigger clusterfuck than it normally is of a clusterfuck. And it felt horrible because at one point I realized I was playing this mode that normally I love, but Overwatch just cannot do it. And I was basically suffering. And why was I doing this? Because I wanted a loot box. And this was back before, like back when I initially gave Overwatch his massive chance before dropping it for a while. And that really hurt because it was not only again a mode I normally love in video games being butchered by Blizzard, but it's the only reason I was there is because I was trying to get some cosmetics, and I kind of realized that, and I stopped. I stopped playing capture the flag mode, and hell, like I love playing capture the flag in real life, but I guess in real life you don't have Winston jumping in, dropping a shield, grabbing the flag, then jumping out again, you fucker.
Yeah, I mean, the easier a metagame forms of it, the easier it is to identify that your mode is flawed. So if the whole game is now based around Winston jumping and grabbing the flag, well, the mode's not that well balanced. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
maybe if they hero restricted.
Yeah, I mean, we'd be fine with that. But then it's like you don't really see hero restrictions happening very often. And just very briefly touching on whenever like I would go to a tournament and there are these players, these heroes. We'll say we can use Dota even that are considered the top tier, and then there are these heroes that give you a handicap if you were to play just based off the win-loss ratio. And nobody ever has the heart to actually ban the characters that are so-called low tier that may handicap the player for picking. So they never go through with it, but if they did, I would trust their judgment on it. Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, it was a cycle of mediocrity and frustration under the guise of, oh, but you can earn 3 loot boxes this week, and if you don't earn them by the end of the week, you'll lose out. I mean, part of that does come down to, I guess, time-based quests or time-gated quests, dailies, weeklies, etc. But it's also a matter of they were rewarding you with RNG. Like, this is, in general, I'm bashing video games for this, but I'm also wanting to bash Overwatch very much specifically for this. The way loot and drops are now handled really seems to have taken away the incentive of earning. If I do a good job as, let's say, Soldier 76 in Overwatch, the best I can hope to get is a spray. Now, let's face it, sprays are very limited in terms of use. Like, oh, you'll decorate your starting area with them, or maybe you'll put one on the payload.
Or if you know you got to play at the game. If you know you got to play at the game, like you did a thing, you're like, okay, this is play of the game worthy, and then you spray the ground, like that's fun.
Yeah, but the point is that if I do earn these boxes, I don't necessarily know what the hell I'm getting. If I very much favor Orisa, I would like to earn an actual skin for her, or I would like to earn a heroic intrigue. I would like to actually earn something for her that says, by the way, I'm good with this hero. Instead, what skins I get for her are determined by RNG loot boxes. What poses I get for her are determined by RNG loot boxes. What heroic intros I get for her are determined by RNG loot boxes.
Right.
And I can craft these using a currency if I want to, but how do I get this currency? Random number generation loot boxes. It's hard to really earn something with her. I mean, it'd be nice if I, play her enough times. It's like, here's a new skin variant because you've proven you know how to play this character and you've done these awesome things as her. Here's your reward. Instead, they hand out very mediocre sprays. There's, I think, very few of them per character. Like, I think maybe 2 that you earn per
There's just some.
But, I'm sure you can understand the limited use sprays that you pretty much need to look at a wall and shoot something there. And as someone who's played sniper before, it's like, oh, you're going to look at a wall and put, a nice little thing of spray paint there? Thank you.
Right.
It's not really as fun as if I were to earn a skin or earn a heroic intro. If I get play of the game as Reaper 10 times, it'd be nice to get a heroic intro that shows, hey, this guy knows how to play Reaper and he's gone and played the game several times, which in the case of playing Reaper means I jumped off a ledge and pushed Q. This is one of the reasons I'm not a fan of Overwatch.
Now, I'm not sure if I if I want to say I agree or disagree, because while you're describing that, I'm thinking about, I asked somebody to buy me the Arcana for Lena because Lena is my main, and I enjoy playing her, to the point where I would deliberately pick her in instances where I probably shouldn't have for
I
that.
can testify to that.
Yeah, for that heightened challenge. And what was great is that when I was really into it, I was with people who trusted me that I would still be able to do my part. And what happened
Well,
was,
at the very least, we can force you to buy a mechanism, and you're still doing
no,
something.
I was so happy to play support, and that wasn't a problem. It's a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was, when I would wear that Arcana, for those of you who aren't familiar with Dota, it's a really expensive skin that
Costs about as much as a game.
yeah. And well, I mean, the game is free to play, right?
Well,
So
a game.
it depends on the game. Some games are cheaper, some games are more expensive, but like $30. So it was a friend.
$40.
$40. Sorry. And by wearing that Arcana, what it said to other players is, I know this character very well. Watch out. This is going to be a tough thing. And that was a voluntary expression that I chose to do. And what I found was, in, say, like Overwatch, because the skins, they kind of just like happen when somebody on the enemy team has a really cool skin, it doesn't say really anything about the player. Now, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I do want to acknowledge that when you have the ability to voluntarily buy skins, you do actually change the mentality of the game in a way that's not as easily quantifiable as when you get the actual gun upgrades in Battlefront. So you understand what I'm saying, right? Like, okay, if this person has that skin, it might suggest that this person is confident in their abilities versus my confidence in my abilities, and now the dynamic of the game has changed in a way that otherwise wouldn't be there.
You're basically saying that the nicer skins, because you're voluntarily getting a hold of them as opposed to being given to you through random number generation, demonstrate or display to other people a level of either mastery of that character, or alternatively a bad sense of money choice. Because I can tell you a lot of people bought the Terrorblade Arcana when it came out, and a lot of people sold it for less than it cost in the store afterwards. There are a lot of people that said, "Oh, this looks really cool," and then they found out that Terrorblade has a fucking high skill ceiling and decided to give up.
Right. Yeah, and
There are whales. There are people who will invest way too much money in a game for stuff that they haven't really gained or earned. And it actually kind of comes back to what the example I said. Like, imagine if you had to do a whole bunch of really awesome things as Terrorblade, and then you're just given his Arcana because you did a whole bunch of really awesome things as Terrorblade. Mm-hmm. That would at least show that you worked towards a goal, gained a goal, and when you're demonstrating to everybody, behold my mastery of Terrorblade, it's because of an actual quantifiable mastery of Terrorblade. Now, Dota is free to play, so the idea of selling, skins is fine. I'm using it more as a general example. Actually, I'm going to diverge for a moment and go to fighting games. Because in fighting games, there's usually an unlockable skin you get for beating the arcade mode, or beating, the arcade ladder. Like, if I play Reptile in Mortal Kombat and I beat his ladder, I get an alternative skin for him that allows me to say, hey, I beat his ladder. And then you look at Injustice 2, where most of the items come from random loot chests. I mean, you do get some stuff for leveling up. Okay, I'll hand that to you. But the fact that a lot of cosmetic pieces that also alter your stats are available through loot boxes does bring a lot into question. Most people who play Injustice 2 will play with items turned off, so it's 100% cosmetic. Fine. But they did put that there in the game. They did say, here are the loot boxes in Injustice 2. They drop gear. This gear is randomized, so it could be any character. I think even including DLC characters if you don't own that DLC. And it does augment the stats of the character slightly if you choose to play with the stats on. So you can turn it off, but at the same time, I don't feel like that fully excuses it. But again, I'm using fighting games as an example of traditionally you perform certain activities in it and you receive cosmetic rewards that show off your mastery of the game. And, I think in general DLC skins kind of ruined that, but it is a very easy example of saying earning to receiving ratio.
Well, I just think that my stance on it at this point in time would have to be, I would prefer a game not to have that. And I get a very specific experience out of Overwatch because while it is an online game and I'm playing other players, the characters have a very specific design structure, so I can kind of lose sight of the players and more focus on the character to character interaction. Overwatch is kind of my go-to turn my brain off game. Now, there are people who play competitively and their brains are fully active, and I respect that. Fine, do what makes you happy.
Push Q to win.
It's not that easy. Don't let them. I mean, you have to earn the Q first. Come on, you have to earn the Q. And so when I see somebody, if they were to have that Reaper skin and they were to have that additional a presentation, they were able to show, oh yeah, I beat this and I did this. I'm like, okay, well, fuck, this Reaper is good. What I enjoy about Overwatch is not really worrying too much about whether or not they're good or not, just worrying about, okay, this is what the character is capable of. If this player has a pulse, then he can play it optimally. I'll give you that. But that's all I really want to focus on, and that's just Overwatch in specific. I'd be willing to explore how that might translate into other games. But as far as I'll just say that for Overwatch, I would prefer not to have that. Now, in lieu of that, one thing I do not understand why Overwatch doesn't do is to allow the person to pick a skin depending on what map loads, because that would just be a nice way to actually encourage people to collect multiple skins on the characters that they prefer to play. But what do I know? I've only been playing games for 26 years.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing about unlock systems, because going back to my example with the control test I did, I now have 2 skins for Toblerone, and one of them is the Christmas one, which I really don't like. The other was the Halloween one, which I do kind of like. So when I unboxed the Christmas one, it was a double disappointment of I don't like the design of this skin because it looks stupid, and I already have another skin for this guy from the Halloween event, which I liked a lot more. I mean, I'm a sucker for Halloween events, and it was a survival wave-based game, and I'd love for more games that are just survival wave-based in general, because I think that's a very untapped genre. Mm-hmm. But that was, again, a double hit to the disappointment, because not only did I not like it, I already had a better one, and I wasn't going to ever use the other one. Now, I'm sure there's someone who does want to play Santa Toblerone, and it would be really nice if I could give them my Santa Toblerone in exchange for maybe another skin that I do appreciate. Or, like an example I've used with you, I have several emotes for Lucio. I hate Lucio. I would like the opportunity to maybe unload some of those emotes. I, on the other hand,
like Jet Set Radio Future,
So I would, enjoy the ability to maybe trade you that Lucio skin for
I know why they don't do this, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but I know why they don't do it, is because they want to make sure that the players are
buying more loot boxes.
Yeah, exactly. They're at it long enough so that in order for them to end up on what they wanted to, the total amount of time that they had to get the boxes is greater than if, I were to just show up and we were to just give each other everything, because between the two of us we probably have everything that the two of us would want in the game.
Well, I do think, going back to especially Counter-Strike, there was that huge mess a while back of people gambling using Counter-Strike skins, since skins were commutable to real-world money, and there was lots of scams going on in terms of gambling them. So if I want to be incredibly generous towards these companies, which that's a rare feat for me, I would say that the reason why these are handled as unlocks to the account instead of physical objects you have control over, physical objects you have control over,
as physical as it gets given it's digital,
is to limit the idea of a player-made economy, to limit the idea of a player-made marketplace, and prevent people from doing things such as gambling using the skins as currency. Again, I'm being really damn generous when I say that, but it does, I guess, limit the idea of I unlocked this Lucio dance from the anniversary event, and that means it's worth way more than a standard Lucio emote, so I can now drag you hypothetically through the ringer for items for it, which I don't necessarily agree. I'm just trying to devil's advocate myself, I guess. I'm trying to get ahead of the person in the comments section. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, eat it, Mike. Now, the next thing that I kind of want to jump to, and I think this is actually kind of like the last thing that I wanted to touch on. I asked you, do you know Schrodinger's theory, is the experiment that he's famous for?
Schrodinger's cat, yes.
Schrodinger's cat. And then you asked me if I knew what it was, and I said,
no.
You explained it better because you actually know what it is.
Yes.
So
I lost some brain cells in that conversation.
Well, now I'm going to bring it up. So Can you explain what the experiment was?
Okay, the point of Schrodinger's cat was to
Schrodinger.
the point of the cat in the box was to
What are you,
illustrate on.
Dr. Seuss?
No, that's a hat.
Fair enough.
The point was to illustrate on a macroscopic level a microscopic concept. The idea of, in simplest terms, observing a radioactive molecule in a state of decay. You can't really tell what it is until you observe it. Otherwise, it could be either or. Now, there's a cat in a box, and there's a vial of poison, and the vial of poison is released based on the state of decay of a radioactive molecule. I'm oversimplifying. I know someone's going to start trying to
No,
stab me with ice
this
picks.
is actually more engaged than I've ever been. I'm deprecating myself. I'm calling myself an idiot. Keep going.
But because you cannot tell what state the molecule is in until it's observed, you don't know whether or not the poison has been released in the box. So the cat can be said both alive and dead until you open the box, because you don't know the state of the molecule until you observe the molecule.
Oh, is that the
That's it. Yeah. Again,
that's the whole
it's a macroscopic example of a microscopic concept.
Okay. Now, this is a theory that I am that I abide by, and one of the things that about me that I like people to understand is that I am a Christian and I do believe in God, but I don't believe in magic. What I believe in is a way to mesh God and science in together so that the two of them are on the same page and are kind of helping one another. So when I was first described that, much worse than how you described it, thank you. The thing that kind of got me thinking was the idea that God's will has more of a chance to impart itself into our dimension when things are uncertain rather than when they're certain. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to flip a coin. Now, we may be able to have some camera or whatever that can somehow figure out what the coin is going to be before it lands prior to its flip. But we don't. That's the reason why we use the coin flip, is because we all accept that the results of the coin are chaotic in nature, but it's either heads or tails. So my theory is that if God's will were to somehow impart itself, God would be able to adjust the results of the coin and get the result that God wants. Now, there was a situation that happened to me a couple of years ago where I was using a coin flip to decide if I was going to go visit a friend a day later. My friends invited me. He was out in Stainer. So I flipped the coin. It landed on heads, which said go. A day goes. It's the day of. And I pussy out. And I'm like, guys, I got too much to do. I didn't have that much to do. And what ended up happening was I got locked out of my house. And I tried to break into my own house, and I had to remove one of the windows because I thought somebody was inside, and I thought there was an emergency. And I'm kind of butchering the story, but the point was I'm halfway into my house, and my ass is sticking out on the other side, and I'm all cut up. And then my takeaway from that was I really should have just listened to the coin. So all of that is to say, I really like the concept of using uncertainty to see if God wanted to have a certain thing happen. And going back to the beginning of the conversation, when I got an angel, the one angel that I really wanted to, with very difficult odds on my side, sorry, the odds were very much against me, for her to come out, I have a harder time accepting that as a coincidence than I do a favor handed out to me through chaos by the divine. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because I have a very difficult time believing that kind of uncertain honesty is capable in the digital realm. I do not trust digital loot boxes the way I trust physical media because I don't know what manipulations could potentially be happening behind the scenes. We're all kind of thinking that it's random, but is it? It's completely possible that designers are manipulating the odds just enough so that we get things at a certain pace, just enough so that if somebody were to play 5 games, but with this slight tweak, maybe they'll play 7 games, and that keeps them engaged longer, which is what we want. And that's some of the thing that really gives me pause about loot boxes, which is why I will never trust them. I would never go to a store and buy a card that grants me 20 loot boxes when I get home, or just buy the loot boxes, there, the same way that I'll go to the store and buy a pack of physical media that I know there are cards in here. I know I have a chance of getting something I really want. I know I don't have a chance of getting something I want, but at least we're all on the same page about it.
Okay, so metaphysics. We are bringing theology into a discussion about the law of averages. I have nothing to add.
Are you okay?
I feel much better after smacking my head into the table.
I'm not sure why you smacked your head.
I'm not quite sure either. It just felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was a lot of information to process, so I'll understand. And also, there are very few people who are willing to give God a fighting chance these days, so...
Okay, so if we were to take things backwards a few steps, if we were to remove random generation loot boxes from games, how exactly would this affect things? I mean, I think right on the surface, it means that if I want this skin for this character, I could buy it directly, which some games do give me the ability to do. Not all games give me the ability to do, but if, let's say Blizzard says, here's this really cool skin for Anna, here's the price tag on it, if they were to move loot boxes from Overwatch, I could just pay directly for it, get exactly what I want for the price that I want, or for the price that they set for me. And I don't really think this would hurt the game at all. I mean, if they want to maybe hypothetically keep loot boxes for things like sprays or like, the really tiny silly things, that's fine. But you could remove it from Overwatch and still have it be a good game, or what some people think is a good game. You could remove loot boxes from, let's say, Battle Right, and just give people the ability to earn skins. You could remove loot boxes from Dota 2 and just, again, attach price tags to things, which you can buy sets from the store, or you can, buy sets from the marketplace. So would gaming be worse off if we were to just cut it out? Because at the very core of this, as we mentioned before, this is gambling. This has always been gambling. This has never not been gambling. The fact that it's gone unregulated for as long as it has is a horrendous legal loophole. It's basically like, oh, hey, we figured out how to gamble without having to actually put licenses for it. We can market this to kids or anyone we want because, let's face it, Overwatch is a very kid-friendly art style. And there's no regulation and there's nothing stopping us, and it's not even physical objects. We don't have to pay anyone any kind of money. If they win, they get a piece of data. So if we were to remove this from video games, would this actually hurt any given game it's currently in?
None of the games that I have ever elected to play were based off the rewards. They were always based off the quality of the gameplay. Dota, I played Dota because I wanted to and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed TF2. I enjoy Overwatch. I enjoy all of these games. And I mean, if they were gone, I don't think my experience would be any worse. But there is the one less way for the game to provide a dopamine rush for the player. If you are completely honest with yourself about what it is games actually do, then we have to accept that these games are finding ways to manipulate our chemistry in order for us to feel good. And I've said it, halfway through this episode, it didn't need it for me. I didn't need it. But I'm 20 years old. I know how things work. I know when I'm being manipulated, and I can face it and I can say, okay, I agree to this because I enjoy this for this reason. So no, none of the games that I've ever played I felt like were better for having the loot boxes, because the game design wasn't ever really based off of them. I mean, booster packs in card games, then the games are, you start from there. It's a very different thing, and there's so many reasons why it works with booster packs versus it doesn't really work for me with booster boxes in games, or loot boxes in games. So no, I don't think that. And I think, if anything, I think it shows a lack of confidence in game design when they're not sure about whether or not the quality of the gameplay itself is enough to keep players coming back. And I don't think that is a good trend to go towards. So that's one more reason why I would say if they were gone, I'm not gonna defend them. I don't think that they are doing. enough good to justify sticking around. They do just enough good that I'm like, okay, fine. Yay, it's nice to open up a thing. I get it.
Yeah, well, a prime example of this would actually be Heroes of the Storm, because it started off with you could buy any skin you wanted for the price that they set based on what the skin was. And then when they did the Heroes of the Storm 2.0 update, not only did they add a premium currency system, so fuck you, but then they also put everything behind loot boxes, fuck you again, and they even took different colors on the same skin, which originally was all the same skin that you bought for one price, and turned it into 3 separate skins. Fuck you on Imperium. It's and that outraged a lot of people, and it's weird because I played a lot of that game like since beta, so I got a lot of rewards for sticking around that time. So even though I technically benefited a lot from the change, it still still pissed me off because there was the kind of Dota 2 aspect of here's a character I like, I am going to, for the price of the skin, buy the skin that I want to show off that it's good. Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of people were pissed off about this, but a lot of people were also joining over from Overwatch, so it was a system they were used to. And going back to Overwatch and even using Heroes of the Storm, and I'll throw in Battle Right, I'll throw in like every game that does this, they do give the option to craft particular items, but how you get that currency is also determined through RNG. You either get it as a drop as part of the chest, or you get it because you got a duplicate item. And this makes it hard to really plan for anything. I mean, Battle Right at least seems to have a pretty decent drop rate for the currency compared to other games. But if you look especially at Overwatch, you can open God knows how many chests and just get a whole bunch of common sprays or no duplicates or no drops of the currency, and there's no way to plan things out. Like if you say, I want this skin, I know that I get between this amount and this amount of the currency every time I open a chest, you can at least know, well, 5 boxes later, I can buy this with the crafting currency. No one really gives you the ability to do that anymore. And again, Battle Right at least gives you a decent amount of drops with those items with, like, through the boxes. Every box I've opened from Battle Right not necessarily has given me currency, but I'd say the rate has definitely been higher than other games I've played. And in Heroes of the Storm, before I just threw up my hands and left, they at least gave you the ability to re-roll boxes, and moreover, they did start releasing way too many sprays, which meant getting duplicates was nigh impossible after a certain point, even for someone who was playing a lot back in the day. So it takes away the ability to earn through games, and I think, like, obviously the gameplay has to be should be the reward, as you said, but if we are going to have unlocks as a system, letting people earn it at least allows them to put in effort to reward. I'm going to go back many, many, many years to CBC. On the radio, they were talking about the rise of World of Warcraft and similar games. And they were talking about the grind in the games and how people would do something repetitively in the game and they get a reward for it, and they sort of, being two old ladies talking about, threw up their hands and say, well, that's just like real life. Why would you want to do that in a video game when you can do it in real life and get better rewards? Because in real life, it's not guaranteed. In real life, you can do everything right and everything you're supposed to and still lose. That's called life. In video games, if you're going to, dangle carrots in front of people, if you're going to offer rewards, the promise is we put in X amount of work, we get, Y award.
That makes a lot of sense because you can see other people have passed those milestones.
Yeah.
They're wearing the armor, they've got the cool weapons, they've got the levels. They're proving that the system works.
And, I have slaughtered many people in Dota 2, Overwatch, and just every game I've played, and they've had some really cool item that I wish I could have because I know I'm doing a damn better job at them because they're dead and I'm walking over their corpse. So it's always this weird thing that I've proven I can, stun 5 people at once with 1 Earth Shatter, but this guy has that skin I'd like. He's the one getting himself murdered left, right, and center because he keeps charging so far away from his team and off a cliff once. But he's got the nicer looking thing. I'm the one who put the effort in. Now, if you give me the option to buy it outright, that at least has an even playing field. But basically, he won the lottery. I didn't. I'm clearly the better player. Why can't I prove that?
Exactly. Yeah, it can be. I mean, there's you still at the end of the game. You will see who's proven what, but you do want there to be some level of showing up to the battlefield in your full regalia and wanting to say, I have the experience, I'm a veteran, so I completely understand that. Yeah, it's very frustrating. I mean, this is just supposed to be this fun thing that we do, unless you're a competitive player, but by all means. And it's like, man, I would really like to play Star Wars Battlefront, and I think the only reason why Star Wars Battlefront gets away with it, I mean, don't get me wrong, I would still play Star Wars Battlefront.
Well, you have to install Origin for that.
I know, but it's Star Wars, and I'm very attached and close with Star Wars, and so I know it's
Origin.
I know it's Origin.
It's
I know.
It's EA built malware.
Okay, listen, I'm not saying you're wrong.
We literally had an entire episode about this. It was a short episode, but
I mean, we agreed that we would get to the point, and then we would only go as far as we needed to,
You are going against the God of Machines just by installing it.